A quote from Alan Greenspan. We can guarantee cash benefits as far out and whatever size you like, but we cannot guarantee their purchasing power. What does that mean? That was Alan Greenspan. He was the head of the Fed years ago, and he was being questioned on Social Security, solvency of that, benefits, as far as retirement, that kind of stuff, and just the whole money supply itself. So when he said, we can guarantee cash benefits as far out and whatever size you like, but we cannot guarantee their purchasing power. That means printing, making digits. That's what they do. It's what they've always done. The Federal Reserve came out after they were, put into place after the Federal Reserve Act passed in 1913. They have since said, for the most part, not right away, but for the most part, they've said inflation is good. We need inflation for a stable economy, for stable prices, for stable exchange, stable commerce. We need inflation. And they said, but it should not exceed 2%. We need to try to keep it under 2%, and that was their goal. That's why they exist, the biggest reason. Because of that, and then as long as jobs are good and unemployment is low, the Fed's goal, or their job, is to keep inflation at a minimum. They were put into place. The act was passed because they said there'll be no more bank runs, there'll be no more concern, there'll be no more crashes, there'll be no more recessions, there'll be no more depressions. They were going to just stabilize and mellow out the whole economy and just let it go like a fine-tuned oiled machine. Well, as you and I know, that is not the case. And just recently, Ben Bernanke and another from the Fed came out and said, well, we are the ones, the Federal Reserve, we're the ones that have caused the last few recessions and probably the Great Depression. I don't have exact quote, but I'm just paraphrasing. That's basically what they had said. So with that being said, they try to justify and say we need 2% inflation. We'll keep it under 2%. So I'll just read a few things that they said. So the Fed was formed to prevent bank runs, inflation, and recessions. That was why they existed. It's going to be good. So all the banks are taken care of, or the Federal Reserve will take care of everything, will take care of you. So when the Federal Reserve said we need to keep inflation below 2%, so we can control it, so we can keep it fine. And then they said, the Fed said, we need 2% inflation always. So we needed to hit that 2% target always. So it went from keep it below 2% or keep it at 2% or below to now we need to hit 2% every year. Okay, everyone just accepted it. That was that, not a big deal. Now, they just recently came out and said, we need to make sure inflation averages 2% a year. So if it's low for many years, a number of years, then it needs to be high for a number of years so we can even out that average. So if there was no inflation, or they're saying maybe there was a bump of 4 years, that there's no inflation, that they say. Well, then after that, they're like, well, okay, we've had 4 years, zero inflation, according to them in their records. Now we need to do 4 years with 4% inflation, or maybe 2 years with 8% inflation. And then we can average it out. That's what their deal is. And my feeling is it's their justification for the hyperinflation that is coming. I don't think there's any way around it. I don't think there's any way stopping it. I think they're just playing games, as always, and starting to put in things that they can say, well, that's an excuse or that's a reason. Now, set up for failure. I got a few more notes here. So I'm just wondering myself, if inflation is important and we need it, like they say, for stability, what happens? Inflation happens because the money supply is increased. That's inflation, basically. Because of that, prices rise because there's too much money, too much currency out there circulating, that prices rise to compensate. So that's just the way it goes. That's economics. So why would we need that? Is a question. I know one argument I've heard is because the population's growing, so we need to make sure our digits are growing or our dollars are growing, which that doesn't make sense to me. No one can explain that to me to make me understand it or believe that. But anyway, so with that being said, okay, so if we accept that, that's what it's supposed to be. So how does it work? They just make digits, print money, and then where's it go? What happens? Because when they say, well, we're going to do 2% inflation yearly, do you get 2% more money in your bank account? Do you get a 2% raise? Do you or your neighbors get 2% wealth expanded? No, not at all. What happens is they print that money or make that extra money. It goes to the banks and what they see fit, and then they can borrow that money out, loan that money out. People can borrow that or they can loan that out. So they got it, and then from there, if you are getting a loan or you're borrowing, then the bank or whoever it may be, credit union, whatever, they are making interest on that money that did not exist until you got that loan. So until they printed it basically or just made it out of thin air, and you didn't get any of it, but you got the luxury or you got the ability to borrow that to get what you want and then pay interest on it, even though the only way it's created is by devaluing the dollars in your pocket, in your bank account. So they devalue, they make a whole bunch more, they devalue what you have, and your neighbors and everyone else you know has, because they've made more, so that stuff's devalued. And then you go to borrow some to get a loan to purchase something, a house, a vehicle, whatever your case may be. So this money here that didn't exist exists now because your wage went down, or your wage went down, excuse me, your purchasing power went down. What you have went down in purchasing power. And then to get this amount that you want to loan, you also need to pay interest on that. I know it's a big roundabout thing, but just think about that. So it's money that doesn't exist. And then the federal government and the Federal Reserve says, okay, well, you're now eligible to lend so much more because you got to increase how much money we have out there, how many digits we have out there. So lend away. So this stuff doesn't exist. Once you go in there to get a loan, now that exists, and because of that, it didn't exist before. What you have now of cash or money or currency, the value, purchasing power drops because this stuff is created. And then to get that, to buy what you wish, a home or whatever, you now need to pay interest on that also. So not only did your purchasing power go down because of the stuff that was created here, you also need to pay interest in order to get those funds you wish to do what you want to purchase. I know it's sort of convoluted, but I'm trying to explain it as easy as I can. It sort of goes along with that quote that I started with from Alan Greenspan. So Social Security, they're talking about could be insolvent, and or pensions could be insolvent, that kind of stuff. Government could be insolvent, and government's paying debts. He said no, we will never default because we have the ability to print, make digits. So that's why he said we can guarantee cash benefits as far out and whatever size you like, but we cannot guarantee their purchasing power. So whether that is a million, a billion, whatever the case may be, what's that going to buy you if there's so much more out there? If they've flooded the system with all this funny money, I call it counterfeit, which is what they've been doing for the last 12 months, basically. And with these stimulus packages, they're just, stepping on the gas and just making it faster and so much more. And from that, like the last stimulus, which was $2.2 trillion, that equated to $8,000 for every man, woman, and child. From that, whoever was eligible got $1,200, and they got $600 per child, if I remember correctly, if they qualified. And the rest of that went to the banks, bankers, politicians who were vested, those who they deemed fit. So with that whole huge increase of $2.2 trillion, now that's out there because they had to just get it out there. Inflation is going to be coming, and because of that, what you and I hold is going to go down tremendously in purchasing power. It's just what happens. And hyperinflation is so much faster, so much harder, so much worse than this. So I got a little chart here. I can try to show this, see if you guys can see it. But what it is the U.S. inflation rate from 1970 to 1985. Now keep in mind, from 70 to 71, we were still under some sort of gold standard until Nixon took us off the gold standard and all our dollars became 100% fiat. So 1970, the inflation rate was 6.18%. 71, it was 5.29%. 72, it was 3.27%. In 73, it was 3.65%. 74, it was 9.39%. 75, it was 11.8%. 76, it was 6.72%. 77, 5.22%. 78, 6.84%. 79, we're at 9.28%. 1980, we're at 13.91%. 1981, we're at 11.83%. 82, we're at 8.39%. 83, we dropped down to 3.71%. 84, we're at 4.19%. And at 1985, we're at 3.53%. So out of all these, 15 years, nothing was under 2% inflation. And this is just according to their numbers, just according to theirs, which they don't include everything there. They don't include everything that's used as far as gas, food, heat, energy, all that stuff. They don't include it for the most part. It's even worse nowadays because they revamp it, every so many years, and then they say, well, these are the things that matter now for inflation. We don't care about food. We don't care about energy. We don't care about gas. We don't care about these other things, but these are the ones that matter, just so they can keep their numbers down. Because you and I know that inflation's here. It's been well over 2% for a long time, and it's just going to get so much worse. So inflation, hyperinflation, whatever, that equals high commodity prices. So what does that mean? That equals high asset prices. So if you and I hold gold, silver, land, any other precious metals, any stuff of real value, it could be paintings, that kind of stuff. Inflation hits. Anyone holding those assets or commodities, they go up tremendously in value according to what the currency's at. So the currency can buy so much less of food and all the other essentials, but also whoever's holding the assets, the gold, the silver, the land, that kind of stuff, just does so much more, gets so much further along, does a lot better in the circumstances because they're holding on to their wealth, holding on to their purchasing power. Not in the form of cash or fiat, in the form of assets. So I just want to make that a point. And I'm just looking to see. I don't think there's anything else here that I need to cover. Sorry if this wasn't explained well. I'm trying to figure out another way, maybe visually using things to explain this a little better, but it's a huge deal. And my fear is that no one's paying attention, and it's going to be here before you know it, and it's going to be bad. So, anyways, thank you for watching. As always, stay vigilant, protect your wealth, and protect your health.